It takes too much time to build a team. There is just too much grind work. I don't have all the games. The meta shifts around too fast. These are just a few explanations and reasons for why people gen or hack in competitive VGC. And to them I say, you guys are just lazy. Be honest with yourselves. You're just too lazy to put in some effort with building a competitive team. Why am I saying that? Well, that's because you have almost no excuse to hack or gen in these recent games.
Is there more to us than the words we say, the games we play? Can we know that we're not dreaming?
Alright, so I have to apologize in advance because this video feels like it's going to become a rant. And if so, I ask you to forgive me, and if you don't like it, then, well, I'd suggest you leave the video now. As a final disclaimer, when I say and when I'm referring to competitive, I mean competitive in terms of competing at various tournaments and competitions to reach worlds like Yokohama, Japan Worlds. If you have been paying attention to the recently passed Pokemon World VGC competition that was held in Yokohama, Japan this past weekend as of me writing the script, then you are aware that people were given disqualifications and game losses, being sent home early and their run at the championship title ending before day 1 was even over, because they had hacked Pokemon or genned Pokemon. Did everyone hack? I don't know. But it's safe to say that a majority of people had hacked, and the good ones managed to stay under the radar. But honestly, they deserved the disqualifications. They had hacked Pokemon, they genned their Pokemon, they knew the risks of having illegal Pokemon or illegally modifying their Pokemon in an online, or not an online, but an official competition. Sorry about the stutter there. As far as I'm concerned, they don't deserve such a title placed upon them. Now, I am going to tackle each of these complaints one at a time and dismantle such arguments to show how dumb these excuses are, and that people who do this, especially for official competitions, have no legs to stand on and are simply just too lazy to put in the effort. Starting off with the first one on my poll that I posted that received the most votes, it was too time consuming to prepare a team. Now, if you watched the video where I asked, does hacking really give you an advantage? Then you saw that I created a competitive Corviknight from start to finish, using nothing but the tools available to me, starting with a wild Rookidee, complete with egg moves, TMs, EVs, a unique Terra, bottle-capped IVs, evolving, and then giving it its hidden ability in just under 7 minutes. True, I had all of the resources from start to finish, but if you are competitive and especially a long-time competitive trainer, then you would already have the resources, and if not, you will be working to get them. I didn't need to breed 6 IVs, I didn't need to breed a competitive nature, I didn't need to breed egg moves. If I had to do all of that, then it would most definitely have taken longer. But since I didn't need to do that, I didn't bother. Heck, they even lowered the level needed to bottle cap from 100 to 50, cutting down how much work we need to bottle cap competitive Pokemon in half. The only things requiring extra work in this game, with how easy it is to make a competitive Pokemon, are the Terra Shards, of which, if you are getting a dedicated Terra, will require about a day's work to get all 50 of a single type. So, in total, it would take about 6 days if every Pokemon is getting a different Terra than what it originally had, for a total of 300 Terra Shards. And even less if you just so happen to find a Pokemon for your team with the desired Terra type you were looking for from Terra raids. And during those 6 days, you will also get additional resources. EXP candies, mints, vitamins, feathers, other resources as well that help fuel the other parts of your work for making a competitive team. So really, 6 days worth of work does not sound, it doesn't sound like a lot of work if you're working from scratch, that is. If I can make an entire competitive team using berries to retrain EVs, using feathers to fine-tune those EVs, buying vitamins, giving multiple Terra types in an evening, and I am not nearly as competitive as the people who went to Worlds, etc., then they have no excuse. I'm sure between regional events and other local events, you can take a day out to get necessary Terra shards, berries, feathers, mint, or vitamins to retrain a Pokemon on your team, especially if it is a very key part of your team. This leads into my next poll excuse. There is too much grind work. The only thing we need to actually grind for are the Terra shards. Depending on what level of Terra raid you do, you will get on average about 2 to 4 shards guaranteed. You might even find extra shards if you aren't doing 6 or 7 star dens. That does sound like a lot if you don't have a dedicated Terra raid Pokemon to clear out those dens though. But guess who makes great Terra den cleaners? Competitive Pokemon. They're already perfectly trained, given ideal movesets, and often carry good items that makes clearing dens a breeze. All you need to do is pick them on for the den Pokemon, double check if the Terra that it's got is ideal or not ideal, and then jump in to clear it. And with the Blissey raids going on at the moment of me writing this script, you can score tons of Terra shards and EXP candies. Heck, I sold off half of my EXP candies for spare cash, and I'm floating like 4 million. The last time I did the Academy grind was 5 months ago. Like seriously, I did a Terra raid stream with my viewers and we were scoring tons and tons of Terra shards. Heck, my fairy Terra shards alone are almost maxed out. Now, I know what you may be thinking now, or even typing in the comments. You don't get enough Terra raids a day to get 50 Terra shards of a single type, and that's of course not counting the Blissey raids. What if there are no Blissey raid events going on at the moment? You don't get nearly enough Terra raid dens to get the necessary 50 shards to complete a Terra Pokemon. You're right. To that I say you are 100% right. But as is our way, we the community find workarounds to make the grind easier. From the Blissey trainers in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, you know who I'm talking about, who had level 100 Blisseys with Toxic Orb and no attacks, to SOS Chansey grinding for EXP in the Lola, to the EXP candies introduced in Sword and Shield, we have day skips in Scarlet and Violet to reset the Terra raids to get new Terra raids. Once you clear out the map of a single Terra type, for example, I'm just going to pretend that I cleared out all the Ice Terra dens, you time skip forward 1 day and refresh your Terra dens, and you will get new dens of the Terra type that you are looking for. You clear them out, you rinse and repeat, etc, etc. If you get on average about 4 to 5 shards per raid, after about 12 you'll be close to your goal. And if you get a 6-star raid out of the Terra type, even closer. It's not ideal, but it's what we have to work with if we play legit. But Reshiram, we can't predict how the meta will shift. Yeah, because as some people have pointed out, the reason it shifts so much is because of how much genning and hacking teams has become commonplace. If we all took the same time to build our teams, the meta wouldn't develop as fast and we wouldn't need to adjust our team so much. I can't predict how my team will look in days, weeks, or months to come. I went from being a hyper-offensive focused trainer to being a Trick Room focused battler, and then to a slow stalling trainer, and now I've adapted to a bulky snowballing team. It's how things will go. It is just the way of the game, that things that worked before don't work as well as they do now. Certain strategies flounder where before they were dominant. Intimidate spam and protect stall was all the rage until Urshifu came in with perma-crits breaking through protects. Fake out was always required until last generation when Dynamax was introduced. We are trainers. We adapt. It's just how it is. Oh, now this was a fun excuse. Here's a fun excuse. We don't have access to all of the games. If you aren't competitive, and I mean super competitive, as in you don't go to regionals, you don't attend locals regularly, you aren't trying to get to worlds, and you don't play competitive Pokemon seriously, then why wouldn't you have all of the necessary games to be competitive? Just to explain what I mean, looking back at one of the most known VGC player disqualifications and sent home early because of having a hacked and gen Pokemon, specifically Urshifu and Landorus, this player, Brady Smith, and again, I am not hating on anyone here, I am just stating the facts, he said he didn't have Legends Arceus for Landorus, and he didn't have his copy of Sword and Shield for Urshifu. You know, that's not the Pokemon's company fault, that's his fault. Landorus can be found in Sword and Shield as well, through the DLC, and if he was playing competitively in Sword and Shield, he'd have the DLC as well. But that's too expensive, you might be crying. $90 just to be competitive? The game is pay to win at that point. Yeah, $90. That's only if you're playing Pokemon VGC. Have you ever tried playing a card game? Like specifically a trading card game competitively. TCG players in other games have to spend multitudes of cash each year to be competitive, between bans, limits, unlimits, restrictions, etc. For example, if you were to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively, a deck could cost easily $300, and that's if you buy the cards individually. If you were to go the route of RNG, it might cost you hundreds just to get the cards you're looking for. As an example, just 3 copies of a card called Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, an almost mandatory meta staple card, can cost $10 US. That's just 3 cards out of a possible 40 for a main deck. Then you have the side deck, and then you have the extra deck. Being competitive in a trading card game is far more expensive than playing the video game. And again, that is over the course of 3 years, from when Sword and Shield was released to Scarlet and Violet's release date. It cost $90 for the base game and the DLCs, unless you paid for both copies, which can increase it to $150, over the course of 3 total years. The information I'm going to show you is a wee bit out of date since this Reddit post is from like 5 years ago, but a TCG player in that time could have had to pay for 4 meta decks worth of cards, over $1,000 in that time frame. Seriously, I was looking up information and people were saying how expensive it is to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively. It's cheaper now, but it is still super expensive. Like seriously, it is incredibly insane how expensive cards are to play competitively. And this is again just for Yu-Gi-Oh! If we were to talk about Pokemon, it's roughly a similar story. If you're using the cheapest versions of these cards, then a deck can cost, about $100. Not as much as I was expecting, but that is of course when you take into account that I said the cheapest versions of the cards. For those of you who want to flex, however, shinies for example, alternative artworks, yada yada, I'll let you look that up on your own. Between the 2 formats, between VGC and TCG, I know who has it easier on the wallet. Point is, if you're competitive, and I mean competitive, not casual competitive like me, you'll have all of the games needed to compete, DLC included. the strain on one's wallet is not as bad as it is for TCG players. Travel expenses are not something I consider. That's on Pokemon Company to give out larger prize pools to make such endeavors worth it. Now, a final point that I didn't put on my poll, but is brought up by a commenter, as well as a viewer that I do enjoy battling very much, called Local Maple. He says that practice is too slow, and he can be right. When you practice a team, even if you master your team, you might need to retrain it due to recent shifts in the meta. But here's another thing that I think we have. We don't need to train entirely on the ladder. When it comes to the VGC ladder, you've all been there. I hope you've all been there. It's often a Wild West fest. You might run into meta teams, you might run into copy-paste rental teams that everybody uses to climb the ladder. These teams are easy to figure out and counter, but you will also run into weird teams. Like someone running 6 flying Pokemon, for example. Or the most recent one that I've encountered, someone who uses Moody Scovillain as well as minimize Alolan Muck to try to give stats to a co-star Flamingo. Where most people are doing their testing and mastering for their teams, however, is on Pokemon Showdown. We as a community have created our own tools to help the process. We don't want to grind out a team only to have to re-grind it days later. So we go on Pokemon Showdown, playtest the team, fine-tune it, playtest it, fine-tune some more, playtest some more, perfect, find flaws, hammer out the flaws, learn the strengths and weaknesses, and perfect it. Only after we are positive a team is perfect and we feel confident putting all our eggs into that team's basket, even if it's for something like ranked ladder climb, do we finally make it in-game. I don't use Pokemon Showdown except to make Pokepaste teams, and especially to see how a Pokemon's build might look visually. Once I actually see the numbers, then I adjust them. Then I start to do my damage calcs, adjust, and only after I have done my theory crafting work do I actually do the training. As some people have said, using hacked Pokemon or genning Pokemon for a real competition is, like a person who uses steroids to prepare for a marathon instead of, hitting the gym. There is supposed to be some work involved. You can't have it easy street and be a competitive trainer. Going back to the TCG, a similar stance can be seen in how they view bringing proxy cards to tournaments. It is illegal to bring a proxy card, and for those who don't know, a proxy card is basically a fake version of the card, often cheaper than the original, and used to playtest for a deck. It's like printing out a paper version of a card and slapping it into a card sleeve for your deck. Yes, the card can act like the real card, and if you're doing it casually, it won't matter. But official tournaments will bar you from playing it. Just like with VGC, you can gen and hack all your Pokemon you want. Casual battles won't matter. But in an official tournament, it is still illegal to use them. If you bring them to an official VGC tournament and are found out, you deserve to be disqualified, sent home, etc. As far as I'm concerned, the people who got caught at Worlds and are sent home early and went on, crying, saying how everyone hacks and gens, or genning and hacking doesn't give an advantage, so why am I being punished? They're getting what they deserved. Answer this question. If genning or hacking doesn't give you an advantage, then why would you do it to begin with? Because it's easier? This is the easiest generation to get competitive Pokemon. If you're putting in some work, you can make a competitive Pokemon in 7 minutes or less, as I've proven. Be honest, Hacking or genning is not just easier for you, it's also faster. You do get an advantage over non-hacking and genning players in terms of battle time you get for practicing. But because these people took that advantage and got caught, they suffered the consequences. Also, let's take into account the things we already know. A vast majority of the players playing at Worlds probably knew they were hacking, or had hacked and gen Pokemon, and many of them are longtime players, battling for years. They know how Worlds is going to bleed. They were even warned there, don't bring hacked or gen Pokemon. Playing the victim card isn't winning you any points if that's the case. Instead, it makes you look rather pathetic. If it had happened to a truly legit player, it would be one thing. But a truly legit player would have no need to be afraid of a hack check to begin with, since they would have all of their Pokemon legit. Now, to quote another YouTuber, JamTube01, thank you very much, JamTube, for using your quote. You know what, I'll let him explain it better, so I will shut up here and let Mr. JamTube explain it himself.
I think we need a full, generator to make mons from the game. I mean, Pokemon makes it accessible every year. They do more things. But, and that's where the advantage comes in, that it's all about experience. That if you can get on the ladder faster, you're going to very directly get head-on experience that is better than Showdown. Because I guarantee you Ranked is going to have better players than Showdown does. But, and not only that, but again, it's about ranking, that you're going to get a higher ranking faster, which I'm not an expert on VGC, but presumably that is what gets you to qualify for competitions and gets you to compete and stuff. So yes, it does give you an advantage. I mean, imagine if everybody played legit, even in Gen 6. If everyone played legit at the time, there would have been no 6 IV Legendaries. There would have been no Perfect IV Rayquaza, Perfect IV Kyogre, Xerneas. Everyone would have been playing with the best they could get. That makes sense. Everyone says it's impossible to get Perfect IV Legendaries. If everyone played legit, you wouldn't need Perfect IVs.
And he's right. What he's saying is, if we all played legit from the start, we wouldn't have needed to guarantee 6 IVs on our Pokemon. We wouldn't need to keep readjusting our teams. We wouldn't have to gen or hack Pokemon to begin with. We'd all be on an even footing. Nobody would have an advantage, and the playing field would be fair. What he means by this is that going back several gens, I'll use Mega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire as an example, legendary Pokemon had at least 3 guaranteed perfect IVs. The odds of getting 5 perfect IVs were extremely low, and 6 were damn near impossible. But back then, when I competed, I was like him. I wasn't aiming for 6 IVs or even 5 IVs, I was just focused on 3. The 3 that mattered the most: HP, speed, and either attack or special attack, depending on the legendary Pokemon. The nature as well, don't get me wrong. I was aiming for those things to all line up. And if they did, hooray. And I was done. We didn't need perfection. We just needed good enough for our needs. Anything else was a bonus. But what about 0 attack IVs or 0 speed IVs? You can't have a special attacker without 0 attack IVs, or a Trick Room Pokemon without 0 speed IVs. What's the point with that? Confusion hits or foul play? How often is your Pokemon confused in an online battle? And when was the last time you got hit by foul play? And 0 speed IVs only matter in Trick Room v Trick Room team battles. Yes, they can happen, but the last time I was hit by a foul play Pokemon was a Murkrow in Regulation A in Season 2 of Scarlet and Violet. I get confused like 1 in 10 games by a Hurricane user, and I never use 0 speed IV Pokemon to begin with, specifically because everyone's aiming for 0 speed IV Trick Room Pokemon, and I do my best to ensure to never let the Trick Room go up because of that. See what I mean? We don't always need perfect Pokemon. And this generation is the easiest to get competitive Pokemon teams as of yet. We don't even need to breed egg moves anymore. We can change our natures in a second and perfect any IV stat for competitive with just a little investment. The only thing Pokemon Company needs to work on is increasing the rate at which we can get Terra Shards. And the only remaining argument to hacking and genning goes away, as that is the last gatekeeper for competitive Pokemon. I don't hack or gen, and if you want to hack or gen your Pokemon, go for it. I don't mind. I won't blame you, and you know, you can keep your shiny Koraidons and your shiny Miraidon. I'll wait. But if we are talking about a real competition, Worlds as an example, then rules are rules. If you hack or gen your Pokemon, if you have hacked or gen Pokemon, if you're going to use hacked or gen Pokemon, then you are running the risk of getting banned, and you will suffer the consequences if you are caught. If you know the risks and you run the risks, then you accept the risks. So don't go complaining that you got disqualified after all your hard work and lost your chance to be the world champion because they caught you with a hacked Tornadus or a hacked Landorus or a hacked Ursaluna or something. Alright, I've said what I needed to say. I've said what I wanted to say. I'll probably get a lot of flack for this video, and I'm expecting it, but it needed to be said. I honestly believe these people who got caught for having hacked or gen Pokemon were just too lazy to play legit. You know, I could have accepted it in previous generations, like in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, when we didn't have bottle caps to set the IVs to perfect, and it did indeed take weeks to prepare a single Pokemon for competitive, and we didn't have, you know, easy access to feathers and EV resetting berries, and we had no way to change the natures of a Pokemon. But this is Scarlet and Violet. It is super easy to get a competitive Pokemon ready. All you need to do is invest a few hours a day, just like with any serious competitive setting. Even people who play PC games competitively grind for hours upon hours a day. You know, if you are going to go to regional events, if you are able to go to these events and compete at multiple local tournaments, you know, then you can spend an hour or two a day to do some Terra raids. Go look for EV berries, pick up some EV feathers, you know, grind out some money for the vitamins. And if not, you can ask others for help with the Terra Shards, etc. And even giving you bred Pokemon with the egg moves, natures, etc. that you need. There are people like me who are probably loaded on Terra Shards and are willing to give you a free Terra. Heck, I know another Twitch streamer who is struggling, and I offered to do 4 Terras for him. And he was just surprised and grateful that I gave 4 of his Pokemon the Terras he wanted for them for free. I saved him like 5 days of grind, just so he could compete on the ladder. But that's enough. This video is probably already too long for my liking. But I hope this video shed some light and raised a few points. I may have a personal bias against hacking and genning, but that is because I hate the idea that I, a legit player who plays honestly and fairly, could get beaten by someone who created his team in 5 minutes via hacking before arriving to the competition, whereas I spent days and weeks on my team preparing it and perfecting it, constantly training and adjusting it over and over again. It's not a nice feeling either, feeling that you can only compete if you cheat also. But that's just me. What are your thoughts or opinions, if you have any? Did anything I say change your mind or ideas? Or do you disagree with me entirely? Are there other reasons or explanations for why we have hacked Pokemon in VGC? Is there a middle ground, or is this just one issue that we'll never see eye to eye on? Tell me your thoughts down below. And take care of yourselves, everyone. I'll see you all next time with a, hopefully more positive video. Bye-bye!
When you've reached the point where you can't go on, just come to me, you'll be safe from harm. If you trust in me, then I'll trust in you. There's nothing more that I need to do. If you put your hands in front of mine, we'll be shining.